anarchy. Justice Martha Koome has warned the president and his allies that undermining the judiciary is an assault to democracy and will only take the country down the path of chaos and lawlessness. The particular story has been covered on page 7. And I will read this particular quote by the CJ this morning. She's saying that these threats and declarations are extremely serious and a monumental assault to the Constitution, the rule of law, and the very stability of the nation, and can lead to chaos. That is according to CJ Martha Koome right there. And she has warned the president and his allies that undermining the judiciary is an assault to democracy. That story has been covered on page 7. By the way, also covered heavily on our website on www.thelookuptv.co.ke. There's a story here on page 8 on Gachagwa's Mount Kenya woes deepen. Now, the touting of Kiharu Member Parliament as Regions Supremo has a split opinion and given DP a new headache as he seeks to be Central's kingpin. That story covered on page 8. There's also here a story on page 14 on how DPP and lawyers clash in the Mandago trial. Director of Public Prosecution has denied claims that Western Gishu Senator is interfering with the witnesses in Finland scholarship case. Story on page 14. There's a firm that is going to pay 35 billion in carry bribery case. Now, German software company will pay U.S. regulators about 222 million US dollars in fines to resolve investigations into bribery schemes in Kenya. Read that story on page 23. There's also a beautiful picture right there of a mother escorting their kids to Form 1. They're taking a ride on a border as the admissions actually started on Wednesday. Some started on Tuesday. And did we expect that they're going to go all the way up to sometime next week when this particular exercise is going to be concluded as well. Now, story here of a journey of 1,000 miles that has already begun. Now, rider ferry is apparent along Kisii-Keroka Highway to join Form 1 yesterday. That story, that picture right there by Sami Omingo of the Standard. Beautiful pictures right there of a journey of 1,000 miles, beginning with just a single ride, if you can say. All right, there's a story here on page 3 on how pensioners waited for 30 years in vain for 74,000 shillings. Yeah. Israel ignored intelligence on Hamas raid. Read that particular story on page 26. And the ongoing Africa Cup of Nations Black Stars lose shine after AFCON lows. You're going to read that particular story right there. Also, those results, by the way, you can get them directly on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke /sports. All right, let's cross over to the Daily Nation this morning and see exactly what they have focused on. Completely different headline this morning. Murder, Mwangaza husband and sister have been questioned. The particular story covered on page 7. Now, Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza's husband and sister are the latest members of a family to be targeted for questioning over the brutal killing of a blogger, Daniel Mudhiani, aka Sniper. That story on page 7. And I'm going to read about how story here on judiciary. We are ready for dialogue. CJ Koome now tells Ruto the Judicial Service Commission, JSC, has sought an audience with President William Ruto after the executive sustained attacks on the judiciary over alleged corruption. Story on page 4. And story on page 3, you're going to read about how a granny blazing trail as a professional diver at 64, sadly injury, packs over 35 years of experience in coaching and life-saving in water bodies, making her one of the few seasoned lifesavers in the country. Oh, by the way, the story again on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke on how KQ now has cancelled passenger flights to Dar, which is essentially a tit for tat game. Now, Tanzania says move is a response to Kenya's recent rejection of its request to allow its airline to operate cargo flights between Nairobi and third countries. That story covered on page 3. And Salah yesterday saved Egypt as Ghana fall to Cape Verde. That story also on page 34. That is on the Standard Sports. Yeah, there's on the Form 1 admission here, you're going to read about how majority of schools are facing stretched facilities as that admission essentially takes place. Story on page 10 rather on the Standard. That's exactly what it is that you're waking up to this morning on your newspapers or dailies. Majority of these stories are being covered on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke. Also heavily on our social media platforms at Lookuptv. We take a short break. Once we come back, I'll be taking you straight to your newsroom this morning. Good morning. Welcome back. Now, the Judicial Service Commission has condemned comments from members of the executive and the legislature mulling for disobedience of court orders. JSC Jab Mother Kome, in a press address on Monday, said the continuous attack on the judiciary and planned disobedience of court orders is an assault on the Constitution. Let's take a look at that story.
The executive and the government, and we are also part of that government, so we need to know them so that we deal with them. The next question is whether we are intimidated by the barrage of attacks. I think I stated that in my first statement when it happened. I said when judges are attacked publicly and they are hearing a matter, live matters, they feel intimidated. They feel harassed. They feel like they are being ordered to rule in a certain way. Actually, they get embarrassed. Because if you rule this way, they will say it's because you are told off. If you rule the other way, it's like, look, we told you. You see? So this is why we have a principle in law that is called sub judice. When the matter is pending in court, in as much as possible, let us not discuss it in public domain, because the judges are not in that public domain. It is meant to influence them, and it is wrong. That's a principle in the common law of sub judice, to observe sub judice. So I would urge our politicians to stop discussing live matters in public, to allow the judiciary, to allow the judges and judicial officers to engage with the matters objectively and deal with those matters according to the evidence and according to the law. And if somebody is dissatisfied, to follow the appeal mechanism, because this is how we structured the Constitution. And it was a painful process of arriving at, let us have an orderly way of dealing with complaints. The last question from the KTN was whether the president has filed any complaints. Not any that we are aware. Even today we were dealing with the complaints that we have shared with you. Unless it has come when we were in the process, we haven't received any, but we are ready to receive. I think somebody said on the news yesterday, one will be filed on Thursday. We are ready to receive it, even if it comes earlier than Thursday, because that's what we do.
Form 1 admission for the last cohort that sat the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education has begun across the country. This cohort will also be the last cohort to sit the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education. The 1.4 million learners sat the last KCPE exam. Now, parents have decried the high cost of living, leading to a rise in school fee as they take their kids to school. Mervyn Getembe reports.
A number of activities were witnessed in all secondary schools across the country. Students who sat for the 2023 KCPE examinations were being admitted in various secondary schools. According to Charles Odhiambo, a teacher at St. George's Girls High School, Nairobi County, a large turnout was witnessed in the institution. As of the expected 550 students, at least more than 500 students had been admitted by the end of the day.
Of 498 and we are expecting 550. And I think the system has been seamless since the morning because we are almost 80% because we are at 498 and
Odhiambo also noting that the entire registration process ran smoothly.
We have several stages which was made our system to flow because a student cannot sit in one station for more than 2 minutes. We had so many stations as you have gone round and you have seen. There are several admission desks. And I think we are grateful to receive the last candidature. The last students will sit for 844. As a school, we are very grateful, though the numbers are big, but we are equal to the task.
Parents on their side applauded the government for the efforts to ensure that there is 100% transition, a move they say will give every child an opportunity to be in school.
They are so organized. I know this thing is not easy to admit a kid. We were about many parents, but finally we have succeeded. I come from Machakos County, Kagundo Road.
Despite the challenges faced by parents, including tough economic times witnessed in the country, Chewoyet Boys High School in West Pokot County registered a large number of students. At least 90% were admitted.
Wengine walikuwa wanatarajia CDF lakini hawajaweza kupata. Wengine wanangoja scholarships but they are yet to receive them. So far that is the major challenge that we have seen. Serikali kuu ilitupatia wanafunzi 433 lakini vile muda ulikuwa unaendelea wamepungua.
Parents on their side lamenting on the high cost of living, making it hard to meet their children needs.
So nina imani changamoto ni kwamba tu hivi uchumi ya sasa imetufanya tumeweza kugaramika kwa shopping za watoto, kununua vitu, ndio school fees, gharama iko juu lakini tunangangana kama wazazi.
Elsewhere, 15-year-old young boy's dream in Narok County hangs in the balance as he lacks school fees to join Lenana High School in Nairobi, even after beating all odds to celebrate good results. Simon Gitau stuck at home struggling to raise money for school fees and other requirements to join Lenana High School.
Well, these are some of the final touches as students join Form 1 today. Parents, teachers and students applauding the government of the 100% transition. Melvin Getembe, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
It was a relief for parents as 1,000 needy students set to join Form 1 and Samburu County received Form 1 admission requirements donated by Samburu East Member of Parliament Jackson Lekumontare. Now the supply saw students receive essentials like mattresses, blankets, bed sheets and a bucket. According to the Member of Parliament, many parents in the area are facing financial constraints caused by the hard economic situation in the country, which forced him to aid their support. Beatrice Kageha reports.
Students and parents in Samburu East constituency, Samburu County can now breathe a sigh of relief after receiving Form 1 admission essentials from the area MP Jackson Lekumontare.
Kusaidia wazazi ili waweze kujimudu kiasi kwa kupeleka watoto shule. Tulianzia hii shughuli leo asubuhi huko Achas Post. Tuliweza kusaidia watoto zaidi ya watoto 400 pale Achas Post, na hapa tena tukiwa na watoto zaidi ya watoto 600 kupea vitu mbalimbali.
Lekumontare was being moved by the fact that many parents in the area are still grappling with the hard economic situation in the country, donated school essentials to students in areas of Waso and Wamba.
Na ndio mimi nimeona nikiwa mjumbe wao niweze kusaidia sehemu kidogo ambayo mimi naweza. Sio project ya CDF, ni project ya Lekumontare. Mimi mwenyewe natoa pesa yangu kusaidia wazazi wangu ili waweze kupeleka watoto shule.
The donation saw 400 students from Waso and 600 from Wamba benefit, giving hope for a better tomorrow to the students.
Hapa kwetu shida, hatuwezi pata nini kitu rahisi.
Tunashukuru sana mheshimiwa wetu kwa sababu pesa yake ya mfuko ndo amejitolea kutusaidia nayo. Despite kuwa na challenges Samburu, especially Samburu East, Lookuptv kuona yote alijua Samburu wazazi wako na shida mingi sana, ndio maana amejitolea kutununulia hizi vitu zote za shule ndio wasichana wapate kusoma.
Nimepata mattress na blanketi na amenisupport mahali, kwa sababu mahali ambayo tulikuwa tunategemea ambayo imeisha kwa jirani. So nashukuru sana Mheshimiwa Lookuptv wa Samburu East.
Samburu County is normally faced with a number of challenges, among them severe drought, bandit attacks and cattle rustling, which interferes with peaceful coexistence in the area, not forgetting prevalence of early marriages and FGM cases. However, an act like this one from Lookuptv gives hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Beatrice Ilavonga, Lookuptv.
Moving on, health workers at the Nakuru Level 5 Hospital on Monday held a peaceful protest over the death of their colleague, Dr. Laban Kipto Langat, whose body was found in a hospital trench on a Saturday morning. The interns led by the South Rift Region, KMPDU and Kukuso officials camped at the Nakuru Level 5 Hospital administration offices, demanding answers over the young doctor's murder.
An air of melancholy surrounded the Nakuru County Referral Hospital. Songs depicting sadness renting the air as the doctors came together to mourn the death of Dr. Laban Langat, an intern doctor who was murdered under mysterious circumstances. Langat was murdered and his body dumped in the hospital's trenches in the wee hours of the morning on Saturday the 30th. However, an autopsy report indicated that Langat died due to strangulation. The health practitioners led by Dr. Stephen Omondi, the secretary of the KMPDU in the South Rift Region, after holding peaceful demonstrations, called on the relevant authorities to do thorough investigations and ensure justice is served.
Niambia kuwa waliotenda kitendo hicho hawakuonekana, kwa sababu hapa ni wazi sana, na uweze niambia kuanzia Jumamosi jana leo hakuna mtu hata mmoja ambaye tumeambiwa amewekwa katika kitabu ya kuwa alikuwa katika hii kitendo. Haya, nimeambiwa kuwa ni private firm ya security ndiye inafanya hapa. Kwa hivyo hakuna kitu itafanyika, madaktari hawatarudi hapa kufanya kazi kama hiyo security firm bado inaendelea kufanya kazi.
Omondi further threatened that health practitioners will down their tools if no one will be arrested by tomorrow in connection to the murder, while castigating Nakuru Governor Susan Kihika over Langat's murder.
Kama baada ya masaa 24 kama hakutakuwa na watu ambao watakuwa wameshikwa kwa sababu ya hii jambo, hatutakuwa na any other option, bali tutasimamisha kazi yetu, kwa sababu hatuwezi kuwa tunakaa tunahudumia watu, tunahudumia wagonjwa na ilhali sisi wenyewe security yetu iko compromised. Kuanzia Jumamosi mpaka leo hatujaona gavana wa hii county amekuja ama watu wenye wako kwa ofisi yake wamekuja wakasema kuwa hii ndio ilifanyika, ilhali tunaona tu makaratasi zimeandikwa.
According to Charles Kamau, the DCIO Nakuru West, investigations are ongoing with the 10 people having recorded their statements regarding the matter.
We are yet to know exactly what happened that he passed on, but so far we have recorded statements of about 10 witnesses who are with him, and some of them who are not with him but who are calling him, maybe communicating with him, and we are yet to establish what caused his death.
Langat graduated in February 2023 from Egerton University, where he pursued medicine and surgery for 7 years and has been working at the facility since August 2023, with his colleagues calling for increased security, insisting that they will not relent in their quest to ensure justice is served.
Our security iko compromised, that one is for sure, and that's why sisi wenyewe tumeogopa hata kuja kufanya kazi, especially hizo call za usiku. Tumeogopa kwa sababu inaweza kuwa mtu yote anakuja hapa alafu pia auliwe. Lookuptv.
Ian Kitani with that particular story. Let's move on then to the next story. A Kiambu court has declined to give investigators further 14 days to detain 6 suspects linked to the murder of Meru blogger Daniel Mudhiani. Kiambu Senior Magistrate Marisa Opondo has directed the 6 to be presented in court Wednesday and charged. She said the 6 had been detained long enough and that their right would be violated if they are not charged. The magistrate said if the 6 will not be charged, then they will be released on bail.
I recognize the nature of the offense hearing and the jurisdiction of a murder trials only lies within the High Court. Considering the nature of the offense, the interest of justice to all parties hearing, and taking into account the fact that the respondents have already been detained for over 10 days since arrest, and in brackets for Vincent Mureithi alias Supu over 30 days, including the period he was out on cash bail, I will allow the application hearing to enable the applicant to conclude investigations and or charge the respondents were the applicants so to decide. Accordingly, I order as follows. The applicant has not justified detaining the respondents for another 21 days. Instead, the applicant has admitted through submissions that they need a further shorter time to have the suspects charged. And I quote State Counsel, who said, any other period that the court will direct will suffice to have the suspects charged.
ODM leader Raila Amolo Odinga slammed the Kenya Kwanza government for poor leadership. Speaking during an ODM registration drive in Teso, Busia County, Odinga said the government has failed to deal with corruption in the country. Odinga was accompanied by, among others, former Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya and Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi, among other leaders. Let's take a look.
Need to strengthen the ODM party at the grassroots level, leaders together with members all gathered in Busia County to ask Kenyans to register in the party.
Kama Ruto na vibaraka vyake wanataka fujo, sisi ndio fujo. Sisi ndio fujo. Lakini wakati lakini leo tuwe na amani. Tuwe na utulivu.
Just as it is his norm, the party leader Raila Odinga, when he got a chance to address the crowd, he didn't spare the Kenya Kwanza government, attributing their leadership toward deteriorating Kenyan economy.
Sasa hii serikali ya Ruto kazi imemshinda. Waliingia kwa dirisha. Bwana Chebuchetha aliwaweka huko. Lakini walichukua yetu na ikakoma kwa koo. Walitoa ahadi mingi kwa vijana. Walisema kigeni namna hii utaangalia mambo ya mahasra. Ati mambo ya mama mboga, jua kali, boda. Mmewaona hapo?
Raila was in the company of ODM Party Secretary Edwin Sifuna, Busia County Governor Paul Otoma, Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi, who had a lot to say but chose to focus on the following.
Baba ataongea na watu wa Busia, wapende wasipende. Wangapi wanataka baba aongee na watu wa Busia? Na kama kuna polisi hapa, tafadhali fanya kazi yako. Usikubali wahuni wakuja hapa wavuruge mkutano wetu. Hawa wengi wa hawa watu 99.9% ni watu wa OD na ni watu wa Raila Amolo.
Sisi wana ODM ni watu wa amani. Hatutaki fujo. Hatutusi mtu. Tunataka siasa sanifu. Siasa ambayo inaangalia maslahi ya wananchi wote. Yule ambaye anapanga njama ya kuharibu mkutano wetu hawezi hata kidogo kutuumiza sisi.
ODM Deputy Party Leader Wycliffe Oparanya
was also on the convoy, together with party leaders from the county.
Lakini musikie kabisa, lakini hawa ni ndugu zetu, tunataka tukae nao. Hamutaki tukae nao? Hamutaki? Sawa.
Ruga Ival, Lookuptv.
That's it then. That story by Ruga Ival introduces the first break right here on the morning. Once we come back, let's put those notes by the CJ into proper context. She has called on the executive not to take the country down the drains of constitutional abuse. What does she mean? And have they got the tactic wrong, especially when it comes to talking about issues to do with the judiciary conduct, especially when it comes to the implementation of a development agenda by the Kenya Kwanza government? Once we come back, I'll be introducing the guests who are joining us this morning online at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am Kenya Simba. Good morning.
Tere, mambo ni mawili, kufikisha, kumwaga na kurudi. Kulala ni mwaka mpya.
Muka we mse. Nini mbaya? Wewe kwani wani vile dereva anaendesha gari vibaya? Lazima tususe. Anaendesha gari na kwa simu the whole time, hata angalia barabara. Mseni dereva tusimame. Wewe dereva wewe. Mwaka iliyopita peke yake watu zaidi ya 3,000 walipoteza maisha yao barabarani kwa sababu ya tabia kama hizo. Hautatuangamiza tukiona.
Naomba msamaha, nitampeleka vizuri.
Si wameomba msamaha. Sasa tuende tusafiri kwa mwendo wa aste.
Dere Smart hufikisha abiria salama. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
Tuko hapa Kaptara, tunataka kusema asante sana Loto Foundation kwa mambo mazuri ambayo wameweza kutufanyia leo. Wakaaji wa hapa Kaptara, wakaaji wa hapa Salawa, wakaaji wa hapa Mujukuo, mpaka wakaaji wote ambao wanatoka hapa Baringo County.
Naambia Loto Foundation asante kwa kazi nzuri wanayofanya. Mungu awabariki.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the Lotto Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
What about mambo fantastic if not scholastic? Chota kuchota na Hetia Supermarket imerudi. Ukifanya tu shopping ya shilingi 1,000, wewe unaingia kwa promotion ya chota kuchota na Hetia Supermarket. Watu wanaendelea kushinda ndani ya Hetia Supermarket.
Ni yangu.
Mwana tata, kitoko. Wewe na umeshika
nini? Yote. Sasa, uoga na lala.
Karibu ndani ya Hetia Supermarket uweze kuchota kwa wingi kabisa. Watu wanasema nini? Nakwambia kwamba chota kuchota. Unangoja nini?
Magari 7 za kushindaniwa, TV, fridge, microwave, shopping vouchers, school fees vouchers, instant prizes na zawadi zingine kemkem. Chota kuchota imethaminiwa na Hetia's Oven Fresh Bakery, Gigabyte, Mount Kenya Milk, Clover's Food Products, Velvet, Magic Drink, Pwani Oil, Arenco, Fruit Juice, Masterchef, Toilex, Coolsip, Mika, Wash Ultra, Philos, Prestol, Nivea, My Choice, Ushindi, Fresh Fry, Arimis Jelly, Cabernet Water, Dettol, Ketepa, Meta, Glucose, Coca-Cola, Rosy Tissue, Big Giant, Elbins, Unilever, Fresh, Unga wa Dola, Blue Band na Pasta Star. Shindano la chota kuchota linaanza tarehe 1 Disemba hadi tarehe 10 Februari mwaka 2024.
Hetia Supermarket, a world of choice.
Aha, kumekucha na kila kukicha tunasema ni wakati wa kazi. Hapa kazi tu. Hapa kazi tu yo. Niko always on the move kuhakikisha kwamba ninamulika biashara gani. Ni nini kinaendelea? Ni magari, ni biashara ya matunda, ni biashara ya soko. Unafanya nini? Uko wapi? Ndio, hapa kazi tu tuweze kumulika biashara yako. Hapa kazi tu yo. Kila Ijumaa inapofika saa 1:30 jioni ama ile wanasema 7:30 PM kwa kimombo. Hapa kazi. Tutakuwa hapa kazi tu. Tunachapa kazi tu na General Fido ama ukipenda Theodore. Hapa kazi.
So we start like this then. The president, at the beginning of this year, was quite clear that he wants the judiciary to behave like Kenyans. That's according to him. He said that any development agenda that we have by the government, the judiciary should take a bipartisan approach. So as opposed to opposing the government, they should take the view of helping the government implement that agenda. That got people talking, especially guys who are essentially in the law section of this country. We did see that protest by LSK when they told the president, it doesn't work like that. We work by law, we represent Kenyans, and any other person who knocks on our door, we're going to listen to them. So this is what anchored the president, because if you look at those two particular petitions that I want to stop the implementation of the affordable housing agenda and SHIF, the courts then refused to lift those two particular orders, meaning then that should the government not amend those particular bills, chances are come 26th and 19th of this month, we might see the end to the housing levy and or SHIF. The president is not happy. He went on to say that in fact, despite what the courts rule, I will continue. Martha Koome spoke yesterday. So let's take a look at this particular story. We called it Martha Koome Speaks. Once we come back then, get to talk about it this morning.
actually they get embarrassed. Because if you look at the executive and the government, and we are also part of that government, so we need to know them so that we deal with them. The next question is whether we are intimidated by the barrage of attacks. I think I stated that in my first statement when it happened. I said when judges are attacked publicly and they are hearing a matter, live matters, they feel intimidated. They feel harassed. They feel like they are being ordered to rule in a certain way. Actually, they get embarrassed. Because if you rule this way, they will say it's because you are told off. If you rule the other way, it's like, look, we told you. You see? So this is why we have a principle in law that is called sub judice. When the matter is pending in court, in as much as possible, let us not discuss it in public domain, because the judges are not in that public domain. It is meant to influence them, and it is wrong. That's a principle in the common law of sub judice, to observe sub judice. So I would urge our politicians to stop discussing live matters in public, to allow the judiciary, to allow the judges and judicial officers to engage with the matters objectively and deal with those matters according to the evidence and according to the law. And if somebody is dissatisfied, to follow the appeal mechanism, because this is how we structured the Constitution. And it was a painful process of arriving at, let us have an orderly way of dealing with complaints. The last question from the KTN was whether the president has filed any complaints. Not any that we are aware. Even today we were dealing with the complaints that we have shared with you. Unless it has come when we were in the process, we haven't received any, but we are ready to receive. I think somebody said on the news yesterday, one will be filed on Thursday. We are ready to receive it, even if it comes earlier than Thursday, because that's what we do.
So that's exactly where it is. And our quotes are simple, that indeed they should stop. Now, what we have again from the president has vowed to defy court on housing levy, social health insurance fund, and any other, according to him, that touches on his development agenda. That's where we are. So if you go back to the notes again from the chair, JSC, that is CJ Kome, she went ahead and said, well, to date, she gave numbers of judges that have been suspended by the JSC or cases that are under investigation also by the JSC. So any allegation that indeed the JSC is not doing its work, she put it to the fore yesterday, and again dared the president and any other person who's speaking against the judiciary to come forward with evidence. That's where we are right now. So we do not know exactly how it's going to go. What we do know is that once the National House comes back from recess, the housing levy is top on their agenda. We do know that they have only up to 19th, because the courts again are going to make themselves clear on the housing levy, which they said was unconstitutional. Again, given time to continue collecting that levy as they amend that particular bill. Okay, let me then introduce the lady and gentlemen who are joining us this morning. We do have Dr. Fred Ogola. How are you doing, President Linda Jami? Happy to have you around.
Very well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, man. We also do have Ruth Bolo, who's the board chair, Young Women and Leaders Connect. Ruth, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Also happy to have you around. We also do have Japheth Mbui, who is from Kabila La Vijana. Japheth, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, let's then open the discussion this morning on this particular issues that we've seen essentially emanate from within the judiciary and the executive. Now, Fred, I want to remind you again that there was one man who was labeled a goon when it came to respecting court orders. That is one, President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, let me take you back to the final round of his tenure. In fact, when he was supposed to appoint judges, he blatantly said, I know my role is ceremonial in this particular issue for appointing of judges. Went right ahead to say, the 7 of them, I'm not going to appoint them. And there's no way you can take me. What we saw during that period, and I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, what we did see during that period, especially in the last 2 years of his tenure, when they had a spat, public spat with a CJ Maraga, is that everything that the government brought for, the court took a stern action on it. In fact, the housing levy, all the way to other court orders that were spent during that period, Uhuru Kenyatta disrespected them, all of them. In fact, the court said is the worst we've seen, especially when it comes to respecting court orders. Couple of years later, we have his predecessor, one President Dr. William Ruto, comes in office and says, we are going to respect the rule of the law. In fact, the first thing that he did when he went into office is appoint the 7 judges that were not appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. We celebrated that. We said, finally then, we have a president who's going to be in office respecting the rule of law or the independence of all those arms of government. But then, it has not been 2 years in office. No, it's been barely 2 years in office. But this is what he said, that I will vow to defy court on housing, social health insurance fund. That's what he's saying. On the basis of the number one, I do not understand why any other person in this country will say no to a development agenda, one. And number two, that he believes now that there are rogue judges in that judiciary, which should be stopped. Fred, let's begin like that. Is he getting it wrong, the president himself, before we look at exactly what others are saying about the judiciary as well?
Yeah, the president is getting it wrong because the president has to know that the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive are 3 arms of government equal to each other, and there's none that is a prefect of the other. And therefore, the president just needs to do what he needs to do. Judiciary needs to do what they do. So, for example, the house levy thing, it is in court. Even we were in court the other day on 3rd of January. The court was even trying to expedite the process by hearing cases on 3rd of January. I remember I was still on holiday. I was in Malindi. We had to get off the swimming pool and log into the computer and to go for the case. I'm one of the key litigants in the case against the house levy. So the president do not need to discuss. You remember what Chief Justice said, sub judice. You should not even discuss your issues in public because you bring prejudice to the ruling what the judges need to do. They just need not to know what you think, what you feel. You should just submit your case and listen to the outcome. That is what is called judicial freedom. So the president is wrong, and the president thinks that by threatening the judiciary in public, he might get what he wants, but actually, he might actually get the push because now everybody is joining to fight so that judiciary can be free. Because remember this, after all said and done, you will find yourself, me and I, going to court for one reason or the other. So even if you don't like judiciary as it is now, you still have to fight it to be free. You know what I'm trying to say? Whether you feel it's not free, its freedom is critical to me and you. Remember, the president has a political party. This political party can be sued and can sue. And the president is not going to be in office permanently. No one is there forever unless he's going to declare that he's the president for life. So if at all he knows he's not going to be president for life, let him know that one day he'll find himself on the other side. You saw Uhuru Kenyatta's party When he left office, he had to go to the Jubilee was an attack. He had to take Jubilee to fight to court. Remember, his son was with a gun, and who had to salvage him? The court. Remember about his farm was raided. Remember the issue about his mother losing security. So all of us have to know that we are not above the law, and all of us must be equal before the law, and power is temporary. Because power is temporary, now he's enjoying power but not enjoying the constitutional protection. The only way, I told Mr. President, the only way to be unstoppable is to act within the law. In fact, what the president is suffering are just two things. Mm-hmm. One is that the president has been defeated to execute his mandate according to the promises he made to Kenyans. So he's trying to hide behind the constitution. Then secondly, the president is not obeying the law. Because if you act within the law, all the litigants like us will not be called wakoras. We go to court. Can you go to court kama wewe ni mkora? You have to go to court when you have what you call demeanor before the court. We are people, Kenyans of good integrity. We went to court to defend the constitution. So if the president came with the house, how to implement the house thing without interfering with the constitution, he would be unstoppable. If the president was to deliver his mandate, no opposition will come, because now he's threatening the opposition, threatening the judiciary, he's unable to deliver to Kenyans, so he's doing nothing that actually is tangible. Because if the president's legacy was to be evaluated today, what is Ruto's presidency? If at all his presidency was to end today, and you try to evaluate his presidency, yes, what will you say? One, you'll say promises, that he was a president of promises. Secondly, kwa Kiswahili, ni president wa kiburi. Unaona, there's what you call Kenya Kwanza, which has now become Kiburi Kenya, KK. So the kiburi we are seeing with everyone, you see it in the president, you see it in the deputy president, you see it in Ichungwa, you see it in all officers in government, for me is appalling. So if these people are just to know that they came to office within constitution, I'm sure the president is doing some things which are now making a lot of sense now to Kenyans. If you want to know the president is not someone to trust, it's that he's now saying that he cannot give Kenyans what Kenyans wanted because Uhuru destroyed the economy. Yet he was with Uhuru. I'm sure he had to do an economic environmental analysis, know how the economy looks like. Secondly, the second excuse is that he cannot execute his mandate because judiciary is stopping him. You see, excuses are double here. One, Uhuru destroyed the economy. I cannot do anything good to the economy because the Uhuru destroyed the economy. Secondly, judiciary is stopping me from doing my work, which means that in the end he will tell you after 5 years that it is Uhuru destroyed the economy, so he could not do anything. Secondly, the judiciary stopped him, and our chorus, who are litigants like myself and Okiya Mtata and the rest, who stopped him. These are excuses.
Yes.
Operate within the law.
Yes.
There's enough you can do. And I'll finish by saying there's something called the one thing. You know what to call the one thing? There's a book called The One Thing.
Yes.
The one thing is that why don't the president just choose one thing that he will do so well within the constitution? Mm-hmm. You don't fight with everyone. You call it what is in your control, what you can do without consulting anybody.
Yes.
For example, you can become a good Christian without consulting anybody, or you can just become, let's say, an early riser. Do you need to be controlled to wake up early? Or you can just become a smart, clean person, or you can just become a good father. You do not need to consult anybody. What is the one thing that the president has done right? And what is the one thing that can define his legacy? Kibaki said, free primary education. Michuki said, seat belt. The one thing you remember him with. This guy, what is the one thing that is positive? But the one thing that is negative, I cannot tell you. The one thing that is positive, we have a panel here.
Yes.
You are here.
Yes.
My colleagues are here. Let them tell you.
That's it. But welcome to Lookuptv, by the way. Happy to have you around. I'm going to pick that particular line of thought from what the prof has just presented to you now. My question is quite simple, Ruth. I mean, that change of mind that the president has looked at the judiciary for a man who came in and said, let these arms of government be independent, is first order when he assumed office. was to appoint the 7 judges. And in fact, the judiciary celebrated and said, wow, finally now. We're gonna be very independent in this particular country. Now, is looked at it, barely 2 years in office, and they say, nah, these guys are corrupt. Or they're the ones who are stopping me from implementing my agenda. In fact, is asking them to be bipartisan, especially when it comes to rulings on development agenda. Is it getting it wrong, Ruth?
Absolutely. Simba is definitely getting it wrong. Thanks for having me here this morning. I was just going through my Twitter last night and looking at what Kenyans were commenting on the CJ's address. We are promoting a culture of belittling the judiciary openly. But I want us to take a look at what has been happening. Where did we get it wrong? When the former head of state stood up and told judges, we shall revisit. And his deputy, who is our current president, echoed his sentiments. So how then did we believe that once he gets into power, he is going to forget what he was doing in his previous term as deputy president and now start afresh? The problem with us Kenyans is that we forget too fast. We did not look at his track record with the judiciary. When the former CJ advised the president to dissolve parliament because the two-third gender rule had not been attained, the deputy president, who is now our president, who we are saying was really looking like he is in support of strengthening the judiciary, did not speak. And at the time, he seemed to have been playing the role of opposition, at least in the public eye, because whatever the president would say, he would say contrary to it. At that point, he did not speak and advise the president that, you know what, according to the constitution, when the CJ says you need to dissolve the president, then you shall dissolve the assembly, National Assembly. He did not say anything about it. So how then did we come to believe that he is then going to strengthen the judiciary?
Yes.
So I think, I don't think it is that he has changed his mind, at least in my opinion. I think it is that he was playing politics. He told us what we needed to hear. And when he got in, he did, you know, the low-hanging fruits that would then cover our eyes. And we celebrated and we believed, because that's what politics is. And so for me, I think we now need to have conversations about how to get it right, because there's a precedent that's being set, and unfortunately, it's trickling down. We have a government that is not just belittling the judiciary in public. It's less than a year ago where they had a squabble with media as well. And my question is, at what point will this stop? Because now they've finished with media, they're now with the judiciary. Once they finish with the judiciary, we don't know who's going to be next. And so as a citizen, my question then is, do I need to sit back and wait for my turn to be under, you know, to be under opposition or under fire from the government for me to speak up? Or do I need to speak up now because I don't know who is next and when they will be next? And the issue, and I think a conversation that we are not having, we are talking about a lot of the short-term effects right now, but we are not looking at the long-term effects. We are seeing there are a lot of students who are in law right now who used to say that I'd like to be a judge in future. Right now they're saying, if I'm going to be subjected to this public harassment, I don't want to go that direction. Let me do my law and let me make my own money independently. What will then happen in the long run is that we are not going to have good quality of judges, or we are going to have a shortfall of it. She gave us the numbers of the number of judges that were going through cases vis-a-vis the number of judges that have been appointed. So if this is going to be the trend, that was just 1 year. We don't know about the previous years. So if this is the trend, then what are we saying when it comes to the judiciary or the courts in the rural area? So we need to also discuss about the long-term effects of this. And the president and his advisors actually need to tell him that he needs to respect the separation of powers, not just for now, but also in the long run. He is also a president that has come out to really want to appeal to the international community. And he needs to be told that in as much as you are out there appealing to the international community, when they look at your local TV stations and they are seeing that you are attacking your courts, that you're not respecting the separation of powers, then they begin to question what they see when you're out there vis-a-vis what they're seeing when you're in here in your own country, managing your own country.
That's it.
So I think his advisors are also sleeping in their duties,
Yes.
and they need to have a frank conversation.
That's it. And just before I cross over to Mr. Mbui, and that's the question that you're going to weigh in next. The good thing that you've touched on it. But it's proper that you're saying his advisors are misguiding him. Now, let's look at who his advisors are. There's one guy who is now Justin Muturi, who's the Attorney General, and the Solicitor General, Jay Mose. Somebody said, let's look at what Okiya Omtata told him when he was in Busia. Okiya Omtata looked at the president in his face. They were seated at the same function room. Told him, your predecessor, Uhuru Kenyatta, wanted to introduce this housing levy. We told him it's going to be unconstitutional. He didn't listen. We went to court. The judges listened to the evidence that we presented. He told him we followed law. The judges listened. They gave it our way. He looked at President Ruto and told him, we are not saying no. All we are saying is that when you're going to implement this agenda, implement it by law.
Yes.
Because if you don't, we're going to take you to court, and I promise you, the judges again are going to strike it out, which is the same song that is playing out right here. So you're saying, his advisors are misguiding him? There is a man, there are two men with that particular job. Number one, making sure that all the policies from these ministries in the country adopt a legal framework, that everything that is coming from that presidency, that is Dr. President William Ruto, PhD, is also within the legal framework. Is it okay now for us to say, maybe the Solicitor General and the Attorney General are not doing their job?
I think I would say that. I really would say that. And it's because if it was an oops moment,
yes,
a slip of the tongue, it's different. But when you see a government day in, day out, they are at the front of the headlines for the wrong thing.
Yes.
There are different groups, from different sectors of the society, from different careers, are complaining about something. If it's not civil society, it's media. If it's not media, it's judiciary. If it's not judiciary, it's doctors. If it's not, it cannot be that every single day there is a group that has an issue. And whenever someone speaks out, you're termed to be working for the opposition. So I know for a lot of Kenyans, they are saying and they are feeling that they are not doing their job.
Yes.
And you can see it from the different issues that are happening every day. Martha Koome, when she was speaking, she was asked, I think, by one of the journalists, has the president made any complaint? After she gave the numbers. And she said, no. We are not aware that he has made the complaint. So if the head of state cannot follow the protocols and the structures or the channels that are there when it comes to solving the issues that are within the judiciary, the issues that he has found within the courts, the complaints that he has, then as a citizen of Kenya, how do you expect me to follow the proper channels? How do you expect me to be able to now respect the courts of law?
Yes.
That is the question that we should be asking.
I'll be coming back to you, because also now there are people looking at the CJ and saying, maybe if somebody is breaking the law by talking about active cases in court, maybe you should have seen a couple of arrests and all these guys are in court. Are you issuing threats while respecting the people abusing the same law that you're trying to protect? Mr. Mbui, how are you doing, sir? Let me also introduce you to the conversation this morning.
Yeah.
The question is simple. Is the president and the executive getting it wrong? Are they using the wrong platform to talk to the judiciary? Because as of this morning, the JSC has said, we do understand how important this arm of the government is. Number one, for restoring confidence for Kenyan citizens that indeed once they go to all the courts in the country, they're going to get justice. If you go outside there and start these blind attacks, you are essentially just killing the confidence of Kenyans in terms, in their view of the legal system in the country. Are they getting it wrong? Because the JSC this morning is telling them, come, let's talk, table that evidence. You don't have to go out publicly to attack the judiciary. Are they getting it wrong?
Thank you, Simba. and also it's a pleasure to meet my colleague panelists here. You know, one thing that we must agree is that if you look at the president, he looks a frustrated man. He's someone who is really frustrated. If you listen to the voice that is coming from the president,
yes,
and if followed what's happening, you will realize that the attacks are coming from the deputy president and the president.
Mm-hmm.
The other politicians so allied to the president are not talking. So this is something that was well discussed. It's something that they planned. They spoke and agreed that this is the way that we are supposed to go. And if you look at the president reforms that as per se, we can say have been frustrated by the judiciary, from the housing levy, the fuel subsidy cuts, the planned privatization of state assets and the tax scheme.
Yes.
You know, one thing that Simba we must ask ourselves is, from the Moi era up to the Ruto era, each and every sitting president has attacked the judiciary. I think it's high time now we start asking ourselves, is the problem the executive or the presidency or the person sitting at that seat, or the problem is at the judiciary? You know, let us not assume that people sitting at the judiciary are angels. We've had, the president has come out very clearly and said that we've got roguey people sitting at the judiciary, mm-hmm, who are being used by people who want to sabotage the government plans. So it's high time also as a country come back, sit down and do a postmortem. We get to understand who are these people, because from a source I've been informed that we've got 10 judges who are being used by other forces outside to sabotage. I disagree with the president is the public's part.
Yes.
That's why I disagree with the president.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got the right procedure,
yes,
the process that they can follow.
Yes. On the basis of you saying there's a procedure that you can follow. Mm. And it's not once, by the way, the CJ has already spoken twice about this issue this year. Yesterday, she came out and said, I don't understand how you can stand by the roadside and say there are rogue officials in that particular judiciary, but there's already a mechanism that you can follow. Come to the JSC, table that evidence, and give us a name so that we can do that investigation. Mr. Mbui, the CJ is saying, we haven't. Even the president who's complaining hasn't given us a name or any evidence. Is that where the problem is?
You know, Simba, there's one fact we cannot get away with.
Yes.
We've got 2 presidential appointees who are sitting at the JSC. We've got the Attorney General, who is the chief advisor to the president, who sits there. Mm-hmm. And if you listen to Mother Koome yesterday, keenly, there's one thing he said, that if there's information that the president has, remember, he has all the system. He gets all the information on what's happening. Mm-hmm. Every day morning, he gets reports from the National Intelligence Service. And Mother Koome said, if there is any information that the president has that he has not shared with her, she's ready. They go sit down and get to know on how to go about it.
Yes.
You know, when the Mother Koome was speaking yesterday, behind her, we had the Attorney General, we had Isaac Ruto. We can't assume that they have not given this information to the Chief Justice.
That's right, but we also, we have to follow by what she said. Again, Mr. Mbui, she was asked, as of now, as you speak now, this attack started at the new year. As we speak now, have you received any evidence from those who are complaining about the conduct of judiciary, especially in the executive? She said, none that I'm aware of. She's the chair of JSC, so she will be essentially notified that there is evidence that has been tabled against a particular judge. Which is why I'm asking, are we completely getting it wrong? Even the president to come in and say, well, there are rogue members of the judiciary who are getting used to sabotage my agenda. Can't the president come out and say, I'm just angry that my biggest promises in that campaign period are the ones that I'm getting found to be unconstitutional? Is that not what the president should be addressing, Mr. Mbui?
You know, where we agree, Simba, is, in fact, the president is wrong going public attacking the judiciary.
Does that?
There we agree. What the president should do is call the Chief Justice, have a sit down and iron out the issues that are there. What we are not agreeing is that we don't have rogue people in the judiciary. In fact, we've got people, rogue officials.
That's it. But Prof, I'm going to come to you. Just take a minute to respond to this, by the way. I'm going to take you back again to Okiya Omtata, who again has been deemed the biggest defender of a 2010 constitution in the country. When the president again said this in New Year, he dared the president again that you can't stand and say that we have rogue officials in the judiciary without having any evidence. Can you table that evidence?
Simba,
can I ask that question? Why are you not tabling that evidence?
Let me ask you, does it mean that the 3 presidents who have always been attacking the judiciary are all wrong?
Yes.
3 different people, 3 different sitting presidents attacking the judiciary on almost the same issues.
If I may, just ask him, Aribatul, borrowing from what you have said, I am looking at the exact times that they have attacked the judiciary. It has always been when it is not going in their favor. If they were genuine in their public parts and in expressing their frustrations and in saying that, yes, we know that they are rogue judges, one, there is a procedure that you should follow. So if truly you know that you have evidence of something, why are you not tabling it? And 2, if truly you know that there are rogue judges, why do you wait until something is not going your way? It either means that 1, you wanted the rogue judges, 2, you wanted to manipulate the rogue judges in order for them to, make decisions that will favor you.
Yes.
Or they are non-existent, and because things are not going your way, then you are expecting the public to also, because the only reason he came to the public is because he wants public sympathy. He wants the public to also, lack the trust and confidence in the court. So for me, I don't think we need to look at it and say that the 3 presidents been wrong or not, because at the end of the day, I want us to remember, these are still politicians at the end of the day.
I will be coming back to you on that. Prof, I want you to first to start weighing in on what Ruth essentially said, that the president probably is not getting properly advised. Now, I would not like to sit here as a journalist and imagine that particular office that has been held by the AG and the Solicitor General is essentially as useless as it can be. Because for president to come in and say, I'm going to defy any court order that is coming from that judiciary, especially when it comes to the housing levy and chief, to continue with that implementation agenda, I do not think that they will be okay with it. Because if that's my job, to put the presidency in line on their utterances and the implementation agenda, I'll come back the next day and tell him, hey, you can do that. You can actually go right ahead in front of the media and the public and say, no, I will not listen to them. They're here to sabotage me. So I'm going to defy the court order. In fact, that is essentially the most unconstitutional thing any other president can ever say. Is it okay for us today maybe to ask the question, what is Jay Mose and Justin Muturi doing? Because all of a sudden now, the president is using the same language that his predecessor used. That this one's no, I won't listen to them because we know they are rogue. They're using the same language. You might read from the same script, Prof. So can we ask, what is Jay Mose and AG doing? And if they're doing their job, then is the president not listening?
Simba, let's understand William Ruto a little bit more than you are trying to look at him. There's a story that he said when he was assistant minister. He actually said when he was assistant minister in Moi's government, he was in front of the newspaper saying that there's a rogue judiciary. So, William Ruto is not now. In fact, as a psychologist, the personality of a human being is formed by the time they're 4 years old. The personality is a stable character. you don't change much from how you are when you are 4 years old. That's why I advise all parents who are listening to me, be very careful with the child until they are 4 years. That's why sometimes even mothers take time off work to be with the children.
Yes.
Giving a child to a house help or any other person who might not give them the personality. For example, if you look at my son, he's bold. He goes to school, people think he's rude, but he's a very good guy, but he's just bold. And maybe I would say that to the extent that sometimes I'm scared whether that boldness is in good direction. And you find that, look at what children are. When you look at your children now when they are bit 4 years old, yes, you can tell a lot about them. And you'll see this much later. I have a family. We are 11. I know the people whom whenever there is a problem, they used to cry to my parents. They cry until now. And some of them are older than me. Whenever there's a problem, they still cry until today. They haven't changed what they used to do when they're 4 years old. They never changed what they did when they're 18. So William Ruto is not the guy you are talking about now. Let's understand this person much earlier, whom he was. Is that people thought that when he became president, he will change. People don't change. Ruto is just like what they say in marriage, that every man marries a woman thinking that they remain the same, but they change. But a woman marries a man thinking the man will change, but they don't. So William Ruto is just that guy who doesn't change. So that put aside the foundation, let me put this clear. It is not that William Ruto doesn't know that he's against the law. William Ruto understands this constitution more than you. Understands it more than even his Attorney General. He opposed the constitution. To oppose something, you didn't need to read it properly. Maybe sometimes you find when you propose something, you might not understand it more than the person who understands the weaknesses to oppose it. Ruto understands this constitution much better. Remember, he has navigated this constitution even when he was going to Supreme Court for his cases. He was even the person who even used to stop BBI using this very constitution. Yes. He used this very constitution to stop BBI. So he understands these constitutions very well. So it is not about advice. The advice he has. Then the other thing is that I want to strongly disagree with the point you said that he should call the Chief Justice Ombui.
Yes.
No. If you go in well-advanced democracies, you don't see judges meeting with people. They don't mingle with people. Judges need not even to mingle with public, because remember that today I can have coffee with you if I'm a judge, then tomorrow you're before me. Look at how that looks like. So even those calls, why should they call the judge? Just follow the law. If at all there is an issue, present your petition. That's why Chief Justice is saying, please, there's a mechanism to follow that. The mechanism is not to call the Chief Justice. In fact, let me tell you what. If you hear that Chief Justice was called by William Ruto, then they met somewhere, then there's a ruling take place. No matter how it was judicially clear, you will say it is that call. It is that call. So I think that let us separate these institutions, yes, and let them remain separate. For example, MPs going to State House saying they are going to look for development, it is again lacking separation. The same way Chief Justice should remain independent. You cannot be inside the State House going to look for development, then tomorrow you're trying to say when they bring a bill in the House, you look at it without thinking about the president's interest. It's impossible. So I think these institutions should be separated totally and completely. And if there is any way we are not seeing that, it's trouble. Then let me tell you a few things here. I can tell you, every time judiciary touches anything, or even litigants like us, even like Okia Mtata, every time anybody touches on something that brings William Ruto money, he gets mad. So let us forget about the issue of following the law. It's about the money. No, look here. Look, the housing levy is about the money, isn't it? No. The housing levy is about the money, isn't it? The NHIF is about the money. The e-citizen thing, which I was making a press statement about digitization, is about the money. Anything that does not touch his money, he's not bothered. Tell me anytime he gets mad and says judiciary is now sabotaging him, it's about money. People say everything wrong about William Ruto, but he's not bothered. But anything that is touching his money, remember, he becomes very mad. Look at the one of CAS. He gave up on it, isn't it? Very easily, isn't it? He gave up on this CAS thing, isn't it? Why did he give up on CAS? Because CAS was not bringing him money. But whatever brings him money, he gets so mad about it. So for me, it's a commercial presidency, and anything that touches on it does not work. Remember, let me tell you something very clearly. Look at all the promises William Ruto made to Kenyans, and whenever there are anything that is, it was bringing money,
yes,
they are executed meticulously with precision, like the digitization. 17,000 e-government services are on Citizen. They are making money through convenience fee. You understand? This thing now makes 1.75 billion shillings a day, collects revenue.
Yes.
It already collected 38.5 billion shillings on e-Citizen in its presidency. So according to me, let's be honest, and I want to make 3 points which are important, and this will help you understand William Ruto. One, he has what he calls escapist philosophy. He knows that he can't deliver. He knows that his economic policy, the so-called bottom-up, was completely a sham. Because bottom-up was supposed to lift Mama Mboga and Boda Boda. And are they lifting? No. They are too heavy to be lifted by him. So the only way to do is escapism. To escape by blaming judiciary, blaming Uhuru Kenyatta, blaming, for example, let's say Kenyans, blaming litigants. Escapism philosophy is his legacy, and he has mastered the language. That's why Ruto wants us to wake up every day to discuss him. Today, judiciary. Tomorrow, what? I am asking you guys, even in the media houses, why don't you give this guy a blackout? Because that's what Trump did through his presidency. Trump was always in the headline. William Ruto in the headline every day, whether he spoke on church, on top of a car, in a baraza. If you want to know somebody is a liar, and maybe you can gauge this when you go to any meeting where there are so many guys, the liar always wants to keep talking all the time, because that's how you cover the truth.
No.
You see? And they want to control the conversation so that the conversation goes their way.
Yes.
A president who says the truth like Kibaki spoke very little, did a lot. The president who is talking too much, traveling too much, has no time to deliver into the Kenyan market. The second point I have is that the president has what he calls the carrot and the stick.
Yes.
So when you talk about him giving money to the judges, judiciary, immediately he was actually, after being sworn in Kasarani, he went into State House, isn't it, and appointed the judges, isn't it, and he gave the money to the judges and the police, isn't it?
Does it?
Carrot and the stick. That's why the policemen were so hard on Kenyans during Mandamano. You understand that? But judiciary was good with him, then eventually it is rotten. And I want to do maths here. Maths, I'm an economist, I like maths. Do you know why it has become so difficult for William Ruto to manage all these things? Which is now my third point. The issue house levy is personally attacking the judiciary just like it attaches any Kenyans. And maths, in God we trust, the rest bring data. Let's assume that you are a judge, and you are a judge of High Court, isn't it? Or Court of Appeal, but
Yes.
a senior judge, isn't it? Your salary will be around 1.2 million shillings, isn't it? 1.5% of that means that every month you lose 75,000 shillings every month, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So as a senior judge, I also think that you have married a woman who is almost equivalent, isn't it? And also your kids will get education that can earn similar amount of money. So if you have 4 kids, isn't it, you plus your wife, isn't it, are in this house losing 75,000 shillings per month, isn't it? Multiply that by 12, then multiply that by 10. If you are going to stay for 10 years, you have lost around 50 million shillings in building houses which do not belong to you. And probably you have a house already. If you are a judge, will you sit in court and declare house levy constitutional? So the matter is as personal as it gets. And forget about judges. Every other average family,
Yes.
isn't it, has the same challenge.
Yes.
You and your husband, you are paying house levy. Maybe, I don't know how your salary is, but maybe they say every month you lose 50,000, 80,000 shillings. Husband loses the same amount. Your children lose the same amount. Your father the same amount. Your grandfather the same amount. So a family in overall, because these judges also are in families, you discover as an entire family, you're losing 100 million shillings, William Ruto, for a house that you will never see.
Yes.
Because let me tell you, the houses in Nakuru were built even before William Ruto became president, isn't it? The one being sold in Kisumu,
yes,
actually they are people's private houses. I was in Mombasa in the site, in Voi, Taita Taveta, where the site is. I only find cockroaches in the area where they are saying they have employed 60,000 people. And the last point to tell you about this house levy being a sham is this. Simba, you don't live in a vacuum, you live in an estate or you live somewhere, isn't it? Yes. Do you know any relative of yours, your brother or sister or just cousin? Do you know your neighbor or do you know your friend who has got a job in the construction site for affordable housing? And if you do not know any, isn't it? No, listen, I'm asking you a question. Because, listen, 120,000 people being employed is a number you cannot ignore. There must be at least your neighbor, there must be a friend, or even your Facebook friend, or your Twitter friend. Because in my Twitter, I have 12,600 followers. I asked them, none of them has said. On my Facebook, I have 34,000 followers, isn't it? No one has said they have. So for you to employ 120,000 people,
yes,
on affordable housing site, and none of my contacts have gotten this job, there must be a sham. It must be a serious lie. And the argument in court is important to tell you.
Yes.
The argument in court with Justice Muraguri told us when I was litigating against the house levy, told me that there are companies who have been given contracts, and those contracts are sovereign contracts, and there are people on the site who cannot be removed from work just because of a litigation. I told him, first of all, it is a lie. There is nobody who has been given contracts, isn't it? Secondly, there is no one at work, because tell me which name. Just come and let Kenya Kwanza publish a newspaper of 120,000 Kenyans who have jobs in affordable housing. That they'll believe them. If not, it's a gravy train for making money.
Yes.
And anytime we talk about it, the president gets mad and crazy.
Pretty much. I'll be coming back to you on that story. By the Jaffa, I hope you're taking your notes. Let me cross over to Ruth. Ruth, the question's still being, I mean, we've addressed the question of, is he not listening then if he's getting the advice? But you like to think that even after being advised, he's saying that I'll defy those court orders, I do not respect them now. Let's look at the next part of this. Ruth, when you investigate what's the court standing on this is, you might actually say they are partisan. That was the controversial ruling they made, that even after declaring the housing levy unconstitutional, Kenyans said, wow, so we're going to stop contributing. And the court reconvened and came back later and said, but we give the government time to continue collecting it up to January 10th. Then after that, we're going to essentially give a ruling on exactly why it is. Then 10th came, they also extended that collection. So if the president was looking for something favorable, he has it. Let's look at Chief as well. They have not said it's essentially unconstitutional and then we're going to remove it. They've said that there are certain clauses there that needs proper amendment, failure to which then will make a ruling on its closure.
Yes.
That angers the president so much. The question this morning is that if you're looking for a bipartisan ruling, it is right there from the courts. Because also, by the way, Kenyans were really angered by that ruling by the courts when they say, well, it's unconstitutional, but they are still going to collect it, all right? Why can't he do due diligence? That indeed, the courts are advising on exactly what he's supposed to do. So instead of fighting the courts, this time should be used for due diligence, if I may. 2 minutes, we take a break, we come back with you, and then cross over to Jaffa.
Okay, Simba, we are saying that, and the president says that he is looking for a bipartisan ruling. But that is what he's saying. However, his actions are saying something else. He is not looking for a bipartisan ruling. If anything, he seems to be looking for a ruling that is going to be, influenced by political whims, that seems to be the kind of precedence that we want to set. Because borrowing from what Prof was saying here, if he's using the carrot and stick, it is that you go my way, I give you a reward. You don't go my way, I take away something from you. And so if that is the model or that is the kind of thinking that is there, then I don't think he's looking for a bipartisan ruling. Yes. And I think I'd just like to even caution both the judiciary and the executive. When we are putting some of these judges and publicly saying that this particular judge is rogue, because we had an address from Ezekiel Ondieki, who is a High Court advocate, and he was actually hitting back at the deputy president. Where did we get to that point as a country where a High Court advocate and the deputy president of this nation are going at each other? Where the High Court advocate actually says in his address, and he says, they manipulated the process to get to where they are. So that is why they believe that the judges are rogue. What does that say? What does that tell you? It says that even at that level, they do not respect both the executive and now the judiciary. That's so if as a High Court advocate, you do not respect and you do not trust the exact court that you're supposed to be appearing before, then what are we doing as a nation? And what we are also showing people and encouraging people is, if I have been tried and I have been given a sentence, yes, and the judge who gave me the sentence has publicly been, their name has publicly been shared as one of the rogue ones, then I have a right to ask for a new trial. I have the right to ask for my case to be reopened. So we need to actually look at some of the long-term effects of some of these public space that we are giving. And we also need to be very honest and look at, and as I finish, we've also had investors who are actually speaking on this public dispute that is there between the judiciary and the executive. And the investors are saying, I cannot go to Kenya as it is right now because I don't know if the courts can defend me if someone high up in the food chain wants to come after me. I don't know if it is risky, if it is safe, if it is predictable enough for me to set up my business there. So what are we saying? In the long run, we are going to actually chase away some of these businesses that want to set up. And we are seeing them going to set up in our neighboring countries. So I think we need to, I don't think the president is looking at getting a bipartisan ruling. Yes. I think he is looking to influence the judges to make rulings based on political whims.
Pretty much. Japheth, I'll come back from the break with you, by the way, on that particular issue. We go on a break like this. This is exactly what I want you guys to actually think about. This is Ahmed Nasser Abdullahi, who's tweeting this morning saying, well, how I wish and pray that CJ Kome knows her staff. She doesn't need chai and mandazi with President Ruto at State House. She just needs to clean the judiciary of corrupt and incompetent judges. Simple. The question that majority of Kenyans are asking this morning is that not addressed yesterday by CJ Kome. They thought she was going to come out and say that so and so and so from the executive have committed contempt of court. Number one, you're publicly giving opinions on an active case in court. So here's your warrant of arrest. Is she weak in addressing this particular issue? Because we are now forced to compare her with former CJ Maraga. Once we come back right here on The Morning Drift, the hashtag is The Morning Drift. I am Akia Gasimba.
majina naitwa Dr. Susan Owol Jogona. Ni mimi mwanzilishi wa Eroi Hope Center. Eroi Hope Center tuko na Eroi Children's Home na Eroi Outreach Mission. Siku ya leo tuko na furaha kukuwa na watu watatu hapa. Asanteni sana kwa kutucelebrate. Tumefurahia sana na tunawapenda tu sana.
Thank you for impacting our lives and changing our story.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park, fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na Manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na Njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Well, welcome back to the morning. Let's chat the last part of this particular conversation. Just like I promised, I want to clear with Ruth before I cross over to Japheth this morning as well. Ruth, here's that tweet by one Ahmed Nasser Abdullahi, who's saying, I wish and pray Kome knows her stuff. She doesn't need chai and mandazi with President Ruto State House. She just needs to clean the judiciary of corrupt and incompetent judges. That's simple. Again, Ruth, we do know what contempt of court is. That me as a journalist and any other Kenyan is guided by that particular law. That you can't come out publicly and start commenting about an active case in court, giving you views and opinions on how particular judges sitting on that case are ruling on it. We know the specific names of judges, by the way, who were selected to rule on SHIF and the housing levy.
Yes.
The executive has come out and said, well, majority of those judges who are making rulings on this, they're corrupt. And they've gone in to say that they do not understand why they do not support this particular case. In fact, they've said they are paid. You would expect yesterday, majority of Kenyans said, it's going to be fireworks. Now the CJ Kome is going to come in and make herself clear on these particular issues. Ruth, just like Prof said, she almost did the same thing that the president has been doing. Stand in front of the media and make herself clear on those issues. But on her actions, she's then getting asked, number one, why haven't you told us who those corrupt judges are? And number two, all these guys that you're claiming are committing contempt of court. Was that not the best opportunity for you to issue warrant of arrests? Oh, is she weak?
Simba, I think I would not say she's weak. Because remember, we've seen her bite before. We saw during the elections appeal cases, she gave us the famous words of hot air, wild goose chase. So we have seen her bite.
Some people saw. Some people said even those terms were unconstitutional. They were not. They were not judiciary like.
Actually, according to us, we say she didn't write that ruling. It was even for her.
So we've seen her bite.
Those are not her words.
So my question then is, why isn't she biting now? Because when you listen to that address, she's coming out in defense. She starts by reading the headline, which is the New Year address or something like that.
Does it?
So she could not even come out and outrightly say, well, we've come to put a stop to this nonsense that's been going on in the public. We are here to actually protect. She tried to hide it somewhere in between after giving us the stories of how, they have the new tracking system. And then now she comes to address it. So it's not that she is weak. It is that she, for one reason or the other, is very hesitant in biting, which is what we want to see.
Is that not a description of weakness? That when you're hesitant to bite, then some people would deem you weak.
It could be weakness, but it could also mean that either one, she is also trying a diplomatic, means of mediation, or two, it could mean that she's also hoping for some sort of, a goodwill from the president. Using some of the methods that Fred was explaining to us. So it could be that she also knows that it could be also that she is intimidated. And the intimidation is not because I am scared of what will happen when I fight back, but it could be that I have been...
She was asked whether they've been intimidated.
And she said yes.
She said no. She said they're not intimidated.
She said when you're speaking about a judge.
Yes.
And the judge is listening to a live case, they are intimidated. What she did not come out to actually admit is that it is not just when the judge is listening to a live case, but it is touching on all of us, whether or not that case is ongoing. So I think she should have come out to, because when she continues, coming out in defense, the human psychology, the more someone keeps defending themselves, at some point you'll be like, there must be something wrong. It means you're actually doing it.
So here's the question that I have for you.
Yes.
I mean, when you're saying that you guys are committing contempt of court, you would have expected a warning to come from Ruth.
Exactly.
There was no warning. She didn't even say, henceforth, any other person who goes out now publicly to speak about these particular cases, especially the Shiv and the housing levy, based on the conduct of the judges sitting on that particular case, we're going to come for you. She didn't say that. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I mean, that was the right platform. And that's why majority of Kenyans are asking, like, wow, what was that?
Yes.
You didn't even warn anybody.
I think, one, I'd like to also add, let me start from the tweet that Ahmed Nasir has done.
Yes.
And it comes back to the same thing that we've been saying. You know their rogue officials. You know their names. You have the proof. It's simple. Table it. And for the CJ, she's coming out to say, look, my judges are okay. Those that are having an issue are going through the tribunal, and so everything is okay, and what you people are saying out there is mere propaganda.
Yes.
So if you know that you are saying the truth, you know you are right, you know you're following the correct channels, you know no matter has been brought before you, why aren't you stopping the very people who are trying to undermine the processes that are going on? So for me, it is, I still insist, I don't think she is weak. I feel she is either hiding something or she is waiting for some sort of reward, because we know she is not weak. We've seen her bite before and we know she can do it. So we need to find out what is stopping her. Is she, because we know some of them have actually mentioned her in their addresses, and that is why we are having the spat between the High Court advocate and the Deputy President. So we need to know what is stopping her. I don't think she is weak, but I think there is something bigger than what meets the eye that is hindering her from actually going ahead to do the necessary, because it is necessary.
I'll be coming back to you on that, because indeed we've seen it. Japheth, yes, at this point you can jump in then.
Talking of the biting and not biting.
Yes.
I want to get to what Dr. Gola had said. We must always understand Ruto. he told us about we must know who Ruto is.
Yes.
You know, Ruto is one man that we've known since he was young. Remember the decision that he took to vie as a member of parliament, then against all odds, he won. And this is a man who has never lost in an election. Is someone that we know who likes taking risks. And in the decision that he has made, later on, it has proven to be that he has made the right decisions.
Yes.
Talking of the biting and not biting, in fact, let's go back to when the judiciary was launching, was it the state of the judiciary and the administration of justice and what? Something, an annual report.
Yes.
When they invited President Ruto to the function, we saw the opposition. We saw people ranting outside that the judiciary is in bed with the executive. Now, when the executive works very closely with the judiciary and the judiciary works closely with the executive, complaints come that the executive and the judiciary are in bed. What we must understand is that the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, though they're independent, they're interdependent. You know, when you are interdependent, in one way or another, sometimes you cross over each other. And what's happening currently? President Ruto feels that the decisions that are being made by the judiciary are derailing his development agendas. At the same time, the judiciary feels that the decision that they have made are the right decisions. You know, there is what the executive wants. There is what the president wants to achieve by the end of his tenure.
Yes.
And there is what the executive, the judiciary feels that this is the right decision to take. That's why when I began, I said, we are against the public rant by the president. I'm not supporting the deputy president and the president going public. We've got a mechanism that they should follow.
Yes.
Martha Koome is a judge that has made decisions that we never expected her to make. Is a judge that we can say is competent by the virtue of being that she's the one who won and took over the CJ after Maraga.
Maraga, yes.
That one shows us that
yes,
she is competent and she deserves that seat.
Yes.
You know, what
a competency is now getting questioned.
How?
In the sense, yes, in the sense of you have people who are clearly in contempt of court, but then you never even issue warrant of arrest.
You know,
is that not? But this is not even a warrant of arrest, a warning directly to these guys. And they've been here. We've covered these stories, and it's only that I can't start telling you the names for the sake of our audience that are watching. That if they were supposed to investigate contempt of court, especially number one on Shiv and housing levy, they will get those names of guys who've been saying those officials on that particular case, they're corrupt. And they are paid to rule against the government.
You know,
just a small rebuttal
yes.
to understand something.
Yes.
Simba, just a moment.
Yes.
Let me tell you what, Omboi. I have done a lot of research about how judiciary, executive, and legislature works. And I have a case in Europe where judiciary and the executive were so independent that they were not inter-independent.
Yes.
Then later, somebody championed the need for interdependence between judiciary and the executive. When they became more interdependent, the power of the judiciary to hold the executive to account decreased.
Yes.
So there is a correlation between high interdependence between judiciary, the executive, and the legislature, and the power to hold the executive to account. Remember, the father of the Constitution put the executive and judiciary, put the judiciary and the legislature to check on the excesses of the executive. So to the extent that they are interdependent, we lose the power to hold them to account. And that's why I'm very mad at seeing parliamentarians going to State House in a meeting in the guise of saying that they are now working with the government for the sake of development. And that's why I'm also against the CDF being given to MPs, because those things remove the power of the legislature and the judiciary to be able to hold the executive to account.
That's it. Ombui, is that what it is? Whatever Prof is saying, that yes, you can look at that interdependence, but not from the perspective of that since we know each other, there are issues that we gotta agree. Is that what it is? Because that's what the president is saying. And now, Japhet, just to put your thoughts into perspective, again, let me read for you what he was saying in Nyandarua last year when he realized that his SHIF and housing levy and even issues on CDF were actually highly contested in court. I'll read for you this, yeah? Now, here's the thing, and we're going to look at it in perspective, that the Constitution stipulates that every Kenyan is entitled to the highest standards of health care. It continues, in our manifesto, we had plans for universal health coverage, UHC. This has been approved by Parliament. That's where the talking point is. That this particular the bill was approved by Parliament. Then he goes on to say, a few corrupt people are using the courts to stop these programs, and we will not allow it. Now, Japheth, I'm going to read it again. So that you get where the gist of the conversation is. It's saying that a few corrupt people are using the courts to stop it. Let's get it clear. Maybe I need a proper definition of that sentence, that it is people who've gone to court to stop this particular agenda from progressing. Now, two issues there. Japheth, is it okay for us to look at Parliament and say, maybe with the way that it is constituted currently as it is, that Kenyans might not have their way, if indeed there was a counter argument to majority of the motions that go to Parliament? That's why the Constitution essentially offers the last stop on these particular issues. Are we going to say that the president wants that everything that goes through Parliament essentially becomes a green light, that you should not challenge it? Because it's Kenyans, and he's saying here, it's Kenyans who voted for that particular Parliament.
You know, Simba, we all live in Kenya, and I think the last show I appeared here, I spoke about Parliament, and I said this.
Yes.
If we put all our minds in the Parliament that has been controlled
yes.
by the executive, by the presidency. Remember, those people were elected through a political party. And the majority of them, they say the majority belongs to the ruling party. So the decisions that they're going to make are going to favor the executive. That's a fact. So most decisions that have been made in Parliament since are not in favor of a common mwananchi, but they pass them depending on the orders that have been given by their master, who is the president. What we disagree, Simba, is that when it comes to the judiciary, not that when they make decisions in favor of the government, they're in sleep with the government, they're in bed in government. When they make decisions against the executive, and the executive reacts, is that the executive is attacking the judiciary. It's very normal when the decisions have been made against you to react.
Does it?
And as I said earlier,
yes,
there is something that the president must be knowing, though he's using the wrong procedure, the wrong mechanism.
Yes.
That maybe we don't know.
Or
that's why, a minute to Simba, that's why Martha Koome yesterday invited the president and told him, look, if there is any information that you people have, that you need us to know, bring it.
That's it. Japheth, I'll coming back to you again on that particular issue, because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it comes down to what have the courts said about these two particular issues. Let's go back to what he said about this particular issue as well. He continues to say, especially when it comes to the National Insurance Health Fund, which is still NHIF, by the way, he said that 50% of NHIF is embezzled by few hospitals, fake doctors and cartels. We amended the law to protect this via the Digital Health Bill, which is why they are fighting back. He continues. Now let's see what he says. He continues to say, but the opposition is using the courts to stop this particular implementation of agenda. Went on to ask the people of Nyandarua, do I continue to construct the 5,000 affordable healthcare houses in this area? Nyandarua raised and said, please continue. if you look at this mixed submissions here from the president has essentially said the courts are corrupt, because we're reading from the same script. The president has said it is a few corrupt people who are using the courts. The president has also said that it is the opposition that is using the courts to stop my development agenda. What is wrong with this particular submission by the president? Yes.
Simba, give me a moment.
Yes.
You know, let me tell you what, something is very sad here. Between the opposition and Fred Ogola, who even has no money, who can pay the court more? If the court is corrupt, they'll go for the highest bidder. Between the Wakoras kama sisi, the way we have been called Wakora, isn't it? And the president, who has a bigger check? If you are corrupt, you always go for the big. You will be foolish to be a corrupt judge and go to receive money from a poor person and ignore the money from the president. Even in that very statement, the president said that he had to stop all the overtures from judiciary who approached him to bribe him for a better ruling. I can tell you to the truth that the president is completely incorrect, because even if we use logic, because even in court of law they use logic, there's what they call the principle of non-contradiction. A thing cannot be and not be in the same way, in the same place, at the same time. So you cannot say that judges are corrupt and they refuse to take money from you, who has a bigger check, and they take money from a poorer person. It just doesn't make sense to me totally. So the president is not even logical. So forget about even advice. You don't need advice to be logical. You just need to be logical. So the inconsistency, let me tell you, the only thing the president is consistent about is that he's so inconsistent. And this is clear. You know, even if you read a statement, you have to see the inner consistency, and the president, in just one paragraph, you can see inconsistency, meaning someone who is completely insincere. Then put this aside. Yesterday I issued a press statement, and the media houses have refused to broadcast this statement by saying that the digitization is the legacy project of the president, because digitization means more power. More power means more control. More control means more money. Because in the e-citizen, like I told you, they have already collected 385.6 billion shillings, and it is being used to pay convenience fees. The president has introduced the PESA floor. The young boys who implemented the PESA floor, he has forced them to give them percentage shares in that PESA floor. And then the IT companies managing the back end, all of them have been taken over by the president to run them. If you go to Safaricom has been taken over by the president, because he has changed the board totally, and even made the chair of Safaricom board his personal lawyer, so that all the transaction, now there's 13 companies who are working on the back end for the issue of M-Pesa, everything else. Those 13 companies belong to them. I demanded yesterday the Safaricom to disclose them. I demanded a public disclosure of all those companies that are working behind there. I've demanded that we do an audit on the back end of Safaricom to see who receives this money, and no one wants to broadcast this. I'm sure if, for example, he was to say anything which is not even true, everybody could have put the front page. What I say is true, no one puts on the front page. So what I'm trying to say here is that the president is so insincere that even there is no analyzing those statements, because it is just clear, Simba, that the president has got power. He has said Ombui very well. He has got intelligence. No one has more intelligence than him. Maybe even has more intelligence than the judges, because the judges not received intelligence brief. He does. For everything, he has got information details. He has the entire provincial administration, which has remained. He has got the county government. He has the administration police. He has everything. Every time you see policemen in the radio call, they are reporting any single incidents which is being put together, then being used to prepare an intelligence brief. There's a Nyati House where they do all these things. So according to me, the president is in complaints. And then last thing, but very importantly, this money they're collecting through e-citizen, this is the money being used to emasculate parliament, where they can pass a bill. Debating a bill in 2 hours using 300 MPs is completely, again, a serious challenge. This money is also being used to buy people. Those people in Nyandarua who are clapping, they have been paid. I know intelligence that whenever there is a rally going somewhere, money go in bags in advance. People are paid to attend the rallies. In Eldoret, they were paid. You know, Linda Jamii has got Bunge la Wananchi, Bunge la Wazee in Eldoret. We have intelligence about that. We have intelligence about Bunge la Wananchi in each and every town hall in Kenya. I also get briefs. Today is 2,000 each. Go there and clap. And then I have photos whereby, I have videos whereby someone is clapping and you see their face, they are unhappy. Which means that they are clapping because they are being paid to clap. But you know, when you are clapping, Simba, you cannot be clapping when your face looks like you are crying. So according to me, it is, I'm now calling this money blood money that is being made through this digital payment. He wants to digitize the health insurance fund. And by digitizing that money, there's a transaction fee that goes to him. They introduce what you call convenience fee. They make the state services intentionally inconvenient so that they push you into digital platform so that you can pay a convenience fee so that they make money, use the money to emasculate parliament, to divert people's attention, use that money to bribe you so that you clap when you do not want, and probably use this money again to win an election which they don't deserve.
Ruth, I'm going to cross to you as we chat towards the end of this conversation this morning. You know, we sit here and we say, this particular sort of struggle within the judiciary has come to the fore on these two particular bills. I mean, that's the only time when the president learned that they've not essentially removed those standing orders to stop their implementation. That's when he came out and said, well, I don't understand it. Now let's read and see essentially why the court stopped it. And then ask the question, why not just work on it? So that you make it as legal as you can before you present it back to the people of Kenya. Let's go back and read as on this petition on Chief, by the way. Now, we don't know whether this businessman, Joseph Aura, is another corrupt man or is sponsored by the opposition. We will not know. In his petition to the court claimed that the act would, number one, violate Kenya's rights on this platform, exposing them to more online harm. That's the Digital Healthcare Act. Continue to say, it termed the act unconstitutional and a gross violation of human rights, as it would deny unregistered citizens access to government services. In fact, when you listen to that ruling by that judge bench, they said, well, I mean, if some of them are unregistered, and they're saying that if you're not on it, you don't get it, then majority of them will not even get access to healthcare in this country. Goes on to say as well that if you look at our data privacy in this country, and if you look at the Data Privacy Act, they say that it's not been implemented fully in this country. Good. Let's look at what the housing levy essentially, what the court said about the housing levy, and I will read here. They say then that indeed it was not constitutional for only a part of Kenyans to contribute to this agenda. Therefore, ask the government to come up with a platform or a modulation on which every Kenyan was going to contribute. Immediately after they made that ruling, there was a problem. They realized they've exposed the government to claims from Kenyan citizens. Went back again and said, however, on this particular ruling, it's unconstitutional as it stands, because we follow the law, that's an argument that stands. Let the government continue to collect until they appeal or look into this particular case. I mean, the courts have done their job. For any other person who's reading here, that they've looked at various acts in the country and they've ruled based on that. The question that I want to ask this morning is this: is there more than what we are seeing? Because these are just the courts sending the government back to their framework. Work on it, come present it. They've even made it clear on those levels. Why is the government not doing that? Now, all of a sudden, we're seeing this government between the fight between the government and the judiciary.
I think even as I come to your question, allow me to start from some of the things that were mentioned earlier. And we talked about the inconsistency by the president.
Yes.
And I said earlier, the president is not just inconsistent as a human being. He's a politician. He is a student of politics. And he has mastered how to whip emotions from the public. He has mastered how to seek sympathy from the public. He has mastered how to, seem victimized in the public's eye. He has mastered to hide some of the promises that he gives through political antics. So I think as Kenyans, we always need to remember that we are dealing with politicians.
Yes.
And I had said earlier, we're a very forgetful lot. We know his track record. Let's assume that he was a new man when he got into the presidency. Let us just assume we started a clean page. How has his track record been? So we need to look at that before we come and say, he's changing his mind, or these are things we should have expected. Two, we talked about the decisions that are being made in parliament. And I think it was either you or Rombui who talked about where do these politicians stem from? They come from the political parties. The biggest mistake we did as Kenyans is to give both the executive and the legislature to the same party or to the same, wing of politics.
Yes.
We gave both of them to Kenya Kwanza because they are the majority in parliament and they have the executive. So how then do you expect the legislature to effectively oversight the executive? It becomes very difficult. And when we are looking at some of the decisions they've made, and the clearest example is the finance bill. The minute a member of parliament would speak up and say that, give a different view from what their political party seems to be aligning with, they were either termed as a mole, they were taken through disciplinary action, they were taken through public humiliation by their colleagues and their political party heads.
Yes.
And so that makes it very difficult. You find some of them then decide, in that case, I'm not going to speak. Whereas they should be speaking on behalf of the citizens, on behalf of the constituents that have voted them in. That is the ideal situation. Then there is the realistic situation. That is what we call kwa ground mambo ni different. And so those are some of the things that we need to take into consideration, even as we are saying, and even as we are asking ourselves some of these questions, such as, how did we get here?
Yes.
Why is this not happening? What do we do moving forward? We need to move away from the ideal situation and now deal with the reality that is ahead of us. And now that brings me to the question that you have asked in terms of, in terms of the president and some of the acts that were made and the judiciary's ruling. And the first question that I asked myself is, why would I make a decision and go ahead to let you know that my decision is not final? I mean, I know when you go to see a doctor, they'll tell you, okay, so I've looked at your x-ray. I'm seeing that, you have a dislocated knee, but let me call another doctor for a second opinion. That is what that ruling sounds to me.
Does it?
Because they're saying this is our decision, but we've left it a bit open until when you come for an appeal, until when you go for the second decision or for the second opinion. And that's what to me it looks like. And so that's why I strongly feel like there's more than meets the eye.
Yes.
There is a reason why they are not taking a hard stand. We've seen the judiciary take a hard stand before. We've seen them come to a point where they are united and they are saying, look, what is happening is wrong. We stand by our firm decisions. You, of course, are welcome to follow the channels and appeal, but this is our decision and it must be respected. And anyone who goes outside or who goes contrary to the decision that has been made will have to face the wrath of the law. We've seen them do that before. So for them not to do that now, it's not that they are weak. It means that there is something that they are not also coming out to the public and saying.
Does it? But just for a crossover to Japheth as well, because the question that I have for Prof finally is that we have men and women who are in these ministries that are supposed to support the president's agenda. I'll be coming back to you on that. Ruth, President Dr. William Ruto didn't seem to have any other problem when the courts made rulings on the CIS positions. Remember what he said, that the CS positions are supposed to come in and help service delivery to Kenyans, support his agenda. In fact, just to, I might be speaking directly what he said, but I'm just paraphrasing. He said that they're supposed to come in and supplement the work that is getting done in these ministries. So they was important as any other in delivering his manifesto. Went to State House, appointed the CSs. Couple of days later, the courts made a ruling on it. They said, unconstitutional as it is. He didn't talk about it, Ruth. What is different between the CISs now, court's ruling, and this particular issue of healthcare and housing levy?
I think when we look at the CS's issue, it stems back to what I'm saying.
Yes.
Politics. Because look at the names that were in that list of CSs. Those are people who are being rewarded. Because we saw the likes of Honorable Millicent Omanga. We saw the likes of the former Governor Kidero. We saw all these names of people who were either vying on a Kenya Kwanza ticket or were aligned to them in a way or the other. So we know that this was, as what Fred said, a carrot and stick system. So he was just rewarding them. Now, when it comes to his reaction then, and his reaction now, we've had a number, and sometimes they say when the dog is barking, don't go straight to the dog. You need to talk to the owner and find out why is your dog always barking. We've had statements from some of the Kenya Kwanza team where they say, you know, we live to fight another day. Or we've lost the war, but we've lost the fight, but we've not lost the war. We've had such statements, which to me makes it feel like, okay, so we've given up this one, but hapa mbele, we know where we are going to get to. So I think for me, the CS's issue is sort of, you know, your guarantee in the bank, you know, where you can go back and say, you know, we left that one. How comes for that one we didn't make as much noise as this one? Because you know, for that one, they're looking for something that they can use to justify. But we didn't make noise about that one, and it means that we respected the courts. But lest I remind each and every one of us, when it came to the CS's issue, when they went back to court and said, look, the former head of state had CSs and he didn't make noise, the court said, fine, go ahead. And they gave a list almost twice what the former head of state had. And the court said, what is this? We give you a leeway and you want to take it the whole 900 yards. That's when the court came back and said, no, I think this is too much. So they didn't entirely obey what the courts have said. And they also came back and said, look, we know that this issue is still something that we need to discuss. But we assure you that they are going to work. We assure you that we are going to get for them something. We assure you that once this has been sorted out, that they will get their pays backdated. These are things that they say openly. And so when we are saying that he obeyed the CAS's rule and he didn't speak about it, we also need to look at what his people are saying. Because as we have seen, the trend is that before they actually speak, they are speaking from a point of information, from a point of discussion, from a point of huddling together and now coming out to say that this is our stand. So I think for me, there's more than meets the eye, and we need to come and deal with this from as a realistic situation and not the ideal situation. I think that's where we are missing it, because there is the ideal situation where how things should play out, and that's what I think that listening to what Ombui was saying and listening to what Prof was saying about the independence and the interdependence, is the ideal situation. And then you have the realistic situation whereby, remember, at the end of the day, the judiciary will still depend on the executive for one thing or the other. The executive will still depend on the judiciary for one thing or the other.
Pretty much. Japheth, I want you to cap this conversation because the other issues, there's just one more other issue that I want us to look at this morning before we step out of the studio. Now, here are polls that were conducted essentially on this housing levy issue by TIFA in July last year. 69% of Kenyans opposed to the housing levy. And other polls that were also being conducted throughout the year, where majority of Kenyans, a big chunk of them, believe that the government is headed in the wrong direction. And when they were asked to look at exactly what they're giving, the high cost of living, the high cost of production in the country, based on the high cost of energy, electricity, and fuel in the country. Good. Raila Amolo Odinga also went on court, by the way, you do remember, on this particular issue for housing levy, and he went ahead to even advise employers not to pay the 1.5% housing levy. Jeff, I want to ask you one question on this, because they know exactly what the feelings of Kenyans are on a majority of their agenda, the housing levy, where majority of employers and employer associations in the country are opposed to it completely. Is it not okay for us not to see this fight, for us to see a redirection to this particular agenda, a different way of implementing it, just like it was done in the previous administration?
Yeah. I'm one man who never takes Paul seriously, but on this matter, the housing.
They are scientific.
The housing projects.
They are scientific.
The housing project, for me, from where I sit, is a nice project. It's something that was long due. And it's something that I think can help us even depopulate the slums. For those who have lived in slums, can tell you that the house project is something very important. And we've been pushing for the president to come and launch one in Dagoretti South and one in Dagoretti North, because the population is growing daily in those areas. We need these houses. We need to get out of the Mabati houses. At least Kenyans also need to live, people in slums need also to live in these better houses. One thing that I've differed with the government is what you call the priorities. Though I understand Mr. Ruto, our president, is one man who sets his eyes on one goal and goes for it. He's a go-getter.
Such as?
This one man who has taken risks, and it is out here. It has shown that he has always maneuvered and gotten what he wanted.
Yeah. What goal has he set for himself in this particular government?
Remind me one person who has never lost an election in this country. Remind me one man.
Now that he's won the election.
Who has gone against all odds.
Now that he's won the election.
Then what? Yes.
Just that one goal.
Yeah, this one man was gone against the waves, and he has gotten what he wants. This one man was taking risks where people, like in the last election, no one knew that William Ruto. Simba will be here during the election day, in fact, during the voting day. And remember even the comments that you were getting. No one expected William Ruto to be the president.
Beyond the presidency.
Now, let me answer your question, Simba.
Yes.
The project, let us support the government agenda. They understand better. They know what, the people who are running this country.
Yes.
They know what they want. They know what Kenyans want. We've been living in, we Kenyans, we've been people who want easy things. We just want things to come by.
Yes.
For the first time, let us allow the government undertake its projects. Let us give them support on what they want to do.
Yes.
Let us not be opposing each and everything that the government is coming.
That's it. But just before you come in, we're going to give you time to summarize that particular conversation for us this morning. Let me just acknowledge the audience that is watching us this morning. Look at some of the submissions this morning before we step out. Now, this is it. Job Serui was saying that the court is corrupt and the CJ must accept. All right? Athman Kidhikwa was saying, not only the court, but the entire nation. He's saying that we need to start that discussion. All right? Gerald Cheriot Kirui was saying, corrupt judges are very smart in maneuvering traps. True. Not easy to nab. All right? Caleb Isuben was saying, very true, the entire nation is in deep suffering under this regiment. That is according to Caleb Isuben. Thank you very much. I'm just sampling some of those comments for you this morning. Just before we end this discussion, just before I cross over to Prof, you wanted to summarize that conversation by Japheth?
Yes. Just speaking from 3 key things he said. He talked about Kenyans wanting easy things. Get to the streets of Nairobi at 4 a.m. in the morning. You will get traffic. And this is traffic of people who are going to work and some who are coming from work at 4 a.m. in the morning. Go on the streets at 11, you will find the cars operating, you'll find public transport operating. These are Kenyans who are going to work and coming from work. So if you look at between 11 p.m. in the night and 4 a.m. in the morning, during that period, it means that Kenyans are working. If there is a hard-working nation, it is Kenya. And that is why they've always termed Kenya as one of the countries that's got the highest and the best labor market. Only that we have not channeled it. So I don't think that is fair for Kenyans. Yes, the current president has never lost any election. Yes, he's a great student of politics. He won the elections, he got to be president, and he was like, oh my God, you mean I'm actually president? So you're president, and then what? He realized that this goal that he wanted, he got to the goal, but he did not know what he wanted to do with it. So should we then say that just because he's gotten to be president, and we are not yet seeing any tangible long-term effect of his presidency or any of the agendas that he has given us, we are not able to see that? Should we then term that as a success? We need to look at one thing, as Fred said, that he is doing and he has done right. And the one thing I'll give him is he is absolutely wonderful at giving promises, because that he has done. He gave us a recent promise in one of the public addresses last year during one of the public holidays, where he said in a couple of months we are going to have the electric borders fully functional, and we will remove these others out of the streets. I can confirm that this morning I saw some of them on the streets. So I am not very sure where he is at with that being one of the latest promises. You can confirm he talked about the gender in terms of his cabinet. I can confirm that was not attained. So I think I will give him, in terms of him making promises, absolutely wonderful. In terms of him implementing, that's another discussion we need to have again. And I think that stems back to the people that he has then brought to his team. We talked about the depopulating of slums. And I'd like us to look at the NHC Langata as an example. When it was being built, the conversation was, it's going to really help to depopulate the slums, it's going to be a pilot project. That was the conversation. But I can tell you for sure that majority, in fact 98% of the people who are staying there are not from the slums. And with this new housing project that is coming up, what is going to happen is that if I've got an uncle who is in, the Ministry of Urban Planning, he is then going to say, you know what, Ruth, instead of your daughter staying home with you and she's already 19, why don't we do ABCD for X amount of money, and I will make sure at least she has a house. If I have another niece or nephew or a neighbor or whatnot. So we need to be realistic.
Yes.
There is the ideal situation and the real situation. Are these houses actually going to go to the people who are in the slums? We've had people from the slums actually saying, and we've had every time some of them wake up and their houses are demolished, they say, I never got the notice. I was never communicated to.
Yes.
So I think we need to look at that. And finally, my advice to the president is, if we continue with this public spat with the judiciary,
yes.
We are actually going to have a constitutional crisis at some point. We are going to get to a position where the executive has its stand, the judiciary has given, the way forward.
Yes.
And the judiciary could even decide that, the head of state has broken the law and he needs to be behind bars. And then what happens then? So we are risking getting to a point where there's a constitutional crisis, and that takes us far, far back. Remember, we are just recovering from COVID. We are recovering from an election. We've got, a new president who's still trying to grasp, some of these ministries and some of these things that are going on, and some of the international or the diplomatic relations.
Yes.
And then we have a constitutional crisis. What happens? So I think we need to have this kind of discussion.
Pretty much. Prof,
Yes.
let's summarize it like this. And Japheth, you might indulge even the prof. Because the promise is that the mamambogas and the guys from the lower cadre in this country now, under this affordable housing agenda, are going to get houses. When you look at what it takes for you to get the affordable housing, I'll tell you what it is. You need a 10% deposit. You need a 10% deposit. So the president the other day, Prof, comes and tells the mama mbogas and the guys for border, if you save 150 shillings a day, it's enough to help you get a house in the affordable housing program. But when you then equate that amount, it's 150 shillings a day, all right? Per month. You do know what you're talking about. You're talking about what, Jaffet? Just around 4,500 shillings, all right? In a year, what are you talking about? You're talking about less than 100,000, all right? So you would see that as a 10-year program for any other person who wants to actually afford deposit to save on this platform. Prof, can we tell the truth that indeed this particular housing program that the president is talking about, number one, really, when it comes to the mama mbogas, just like Ruth was saying, and the border guys who it's meant for, majority of them are going to struggle to even afford the deposit that is needed for them to get into these houses. Maybe now, the other part of it, where he's talking about employment opportunities in it, in these houses that are getting constructed, that's where the lower card of Kenyans fit. Is that what it is then, Prof?
Yeah, Simba, what is happening with the government is that you can't even calculate that. In economics, we don't calculate that. I was having a conversation with an Uber driver who left her job in an interior design company where she was earning 60,000 shillings. And then she comes with an Uber. She's a lady. And she says that on average, she makes 5,000 per day net. But she says that with the cost of fuel, that net continues to go away. In fact, she says that Uber drivers, borders, anybody in the transport industry, construction industry, manufacturing, production, they're like an energy company. An energy company means that you're working for cost of energy. Whether it's fuel, whether it's power, we should not operate like an energy company. You might find, like, for example, in a studio like this for Lookuptv, go and look at your income statement. You'll find that the operating cost, your cost of energy here is very high. When you want to move around to gather news so that you can tell Kenyans what is happening, your cost of moving around is also very high. You might find that that cost is higher than any other cost. So with that environment where costs have gone high, and then you want people to save, when you want people to save money and invest, there's a difference between saving and investing. Putting money in a bank, picking to use is not investing. Investing money is putting money into something that earns you something in the end, and you must be patient with it. How many Kenyans are investing? We have many Kenyans saving money. Savings to GDP is 12% in Kenya, and Singapore is 50%. So you can tell that already by increasing cost of living, reading people's pay slips, it is not an environment where people can invest in housing. According to me, the biggest incentive was to allow Kenyans to have disposable income so that they can do housing. The model of taking money from people is not working. Then these houses are now being sold. The houses are now being sold. You see that? They're being sold. And forget about even the fact that you're talking about the issue of deposits. How many Kenyans are not credit worthy? Because you cannot go to take a house when you have an M-Pesa, Hustler, or Flazer statement. You should have a bank statement. How many Kenyans have a bank account with a positive income inside it? All these jobs here are a sham. I even one day said in Nakuru that they brought me trouble. They chased me away from, I had to disappear somewhere in Nakuru when I said that when you see people telling you, we are going to give you jobs in Germany, we are being told there are 250,000 jobs in Germany. Do you know, Simba, that for you to go to work, study in Germany, you must speak German. So you must go to Allianz Francais and study German. Because are you going to work in your mother tongue in Germany? So are you going to study in your mother tongue in Germany? So first of all, we have to distinguish that, isn't it? Secondly, go to the website of German embassy and look for requirements. Your account balance must be 750,000 shillings minimum. So how many Kenyans sitting here, maybe myself, I don't have that balance in my account,
Yes.
but how many Kenyans have 750,000 shillings sitting in the bank, in their bank without? For example, there's a family friend who came and told me, Professor, we have a daughter who needs to go to study abroad. And this our daughter, we need them to get a visa. So I've been told there must be a certain amount of money in my bank account as the parent for at least 21 days before she gets a visa. So we sat down together. I put some money in that account, a few people put money in that account, and the money was staying there for 21 days. After she was given a visa, we were given back our money. How many Kenyans have that luxury? This is a true story. It's not a playing around with people. So all these things you are hearing about housing, they don't make sense at all.
Yes.
According to me, the president could have known that. We have been told about Singapore, isn't it? Every time they tell us about how Singapore Singapore built houses for their citizens, isn't it? Did they take house levy? They didn't. They just put an incentive for people to build houses, for people to own houses. They made it easier for you to put money in housing than to keep money in the bank. So it was easier to take your money and buy a house. And because people were willing to buy a house, the people who are doing the construction had incentive because they were already willing buyers, and the housing project went. And then they give you how to graduate. For example, Simba, I'm sure if you are buying a house when you're a single person, you need at least one or two bedrooms. Once you get married, you find that now you're multiplying, you may need 4 bedrooms. So they even give a chance to graduate. For example, you can be in a 2-bedroom house, then you pay some money, then you move to a 4-bedroom, so that the youngsters who are coming now comes into the 1-bedroom, to the 2-bedroom. So I think that the president did not sit with his team to strategically come with how to execute this matter. That's why it is a sham. I can tell you, the housing levy thing is a scandal. Is a sham. We will be discussing in 2025 how the scandal is. Now we are discussing about how to get money, how to stop us in court, how to threaten opposition, how to threaten the civil society, how to threaten the judiciary. But now in 2025, we shall be going to court now to go and tell the president how much money you have collected and where are the houses, and have you given people back their money plus the interest you promised? Are the money going to savings happening in Hustler Fund? The president is full of this fund, Hustler Fund, no structure. This house levy, no structure. Operational structure does not exist. So according to me, it is a big sham of the century. And I think the president is taking advantage of the Kenyans' financial education or financial literacy to tell us all these stories which does not exist. Look, let me give an example. Hustler Fund, we were told that when you take the Hustler Fund, a percentage goes to savings in your bank account, isn't it? Then another percentage goes to NSSF. I ask all these hustlers who took those Hustler Fund, they don't have bank accounts, so the money is being saved on air. Secondly, they don't have NSSF number. Where are they getting the NSSF thing? Look at now what is happening with NSSF now. What I'm trying to say here is that Kenyans need to wake up, and we launched a campaign yesterday called Stop Ruto campaign. Stop him from doing all these things which are taking Kenyans into poverty.
Pretty much. Japheth, just take 1 minute, because you're the only one who's supposed to cap this conversation then. What about the men and women now in these ministries? Is it time they also call upon to support the president to come up with this agenda? Yes.
There's a report that we wrote to Charles Hinga, the PS in charge of State Department of Housing and Urban Development. And I think I can read it. Let me quote part of it. One of the things that we mentioned in that report as Kabela Vijana was the deposit that they're asking the common mwananchi. You know, there are things that the government, though we can support the government on one side, but where they go wrong, we must also point out that this is wrong. You know, the kind of deposit they have put to mwananchi to pay, it's something that will never happen, and it can't happen. And we cannot afford. You know, so many projects that have been started by the government are good projects, but the manner in which they're doing it, isn't correct.
30 seconds, Japheth.
Right? Isn't correct. So what we are trying to tell the government is before they put up a project, they should come back to Mwananchi. And what I've come to realize is that the gap between the rich and the poor is so huge, even in the thinking, the reasoning, how the rich are reasoning and how the poor are reasoning. Very different. In that they don't even understand the other time you saw the cabinet secretary for trade, then Moses Kuria, quoting prices for commodities in the supermarket, which are vitu kwa ground, vitu ni very different. Are you seeing? So they should come down and face the reality on the ground.
Pretty much. All right. Let's look at some of the comments before we step out of the studio this morning. This is Wakesa, who's saying, I wish that guy supporting the housing levy would know why a levy yet it doesn't benefit a contributor. We pay tax. A levy means that I will get a benefit, all right? Ends that with the court is supreme. Good. Continues like this, still responding to Japheth. This is Obadiah Yegon, who was responding to that particular comment. You said that nobody expected Ruto would essentially win the election. Who was saying that no one was expecting that he was going to win the election without deep state. And it's the same people, yes, who are saying or believe that it will not manage this economy of Kenya. So it's sort of supporting your sentiment right there. That's what it is, yeah? Thank you very much then for being a part and parcel of this particular show since the time that we opened this morning up to where we are right now. Tech, the lady and gentlemen this morning, back to the time that you join us right here at Lookuptv, online and Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. The hashtag is The Morning Drip. This conversation doesn't stop here, and I do apologize. I didn't read all the comments that came online because we're also pressed with time. But guess what? We do see them, and we're going to like them and also talk back to you as well. I'll see you tomorrow for another session. Goodbye and good morning.
Thank you, Simba.
Prof, thank you.